We are in central Montana, near White Sulphur Springs, Montana. I've never elk hunted before, and that's been a lifelong dream of mine. I can remember as a little kid reading Outdoor Life magazines and seeing all the pictures, and Montana was like the epic of elk hunting. And so when this deal came up and Mike approached us about doing it again this year, the opportunity to come up and hunt with him in central Montana was kind of a lifelong dream and a bucket list deal for me. So to jump into my first elk hunt with an archery elk hunt was even a bigger deal to me.
I'm a longtime hunter. I've hunted lots of pheasants, lots of deer, and lots of wild turkeys, but I'm a novice elk hunter. And I've always dreamed about going elk hunting with my bow. And the space and the scenery is beautiful, but for me, a lot of life is just spectating, and this is participation. I feel like I'm just a little more alive when I'm out here, whether I'm pheasant hunting behind my dog or turkey hunting or whatever, when I'm actually participating. And I got a lot of respect for the animals, but it's so thrilling to be out here in their element.
I've been hunting as long as I can remember. I grew up in a rural community, and back then pretty much everybody hunted, and it wasn't something that we chose to do, it's just what we did. So I would say this hunting experience, as it pertains to the animals themselves and what you're going to see, what you're going to have an opportunity at. Well, we have an awful lot of elk in this area for somebody that really wants an opportunity to see them regularly, to get after them regularly, to have opportunities regularly, and harvest one. That first morning, I ended up at a place that has kind of paid off for us a number of times over. We know where those elk were, and we generally know where they're going to head if they haven't been fooled with yet. They read the script, they were on their way, we were set up ready to go, and first cow came through just fine, and we thought, oh my gosh, here it goes. The rest are just coming, and there's going to be a bull there, because there was a bull with them, and nothing happened. So we're kind of sitting around waiting.
Unfortunately, I don't know if they saw me move or saw something that kind of blew them out of there, and we kind of lost the deal. We never got the bull to come over the top.
That's the kind of setup we're looking for right there. Just a cow come over the top.
And she was just, it was like, boom, there she was.
That's okay. I mean, I think it takes a number of encounters, right?
Saturday evening, we went to a little bit different area than we hunted that morning. I remember we sat on a beautiful hillside and glassed and felt like you could see forever. And, we didn't really hear anything, so we eased off down the hill and up alongside that creek. Mike called one time and we heard a bugle. We thought we knew, really where that elk was, or had a pretty good feel, so we quickly dropped our packs and jumped into the woods and see if this elk would work. And as soon as we stepped into the woods, a second elk, I think it was a second elk, busted us.
Pretty quiet day today. They're just not talking to us, but hopefully temperature's about to drop and we'll get some action. The second morning of our hunt started off a little slow. We got up on top of a hill. It was a steep climb.
We went straight up that hillside. That was a pretty killer walk, probably one of the hardest of the week. But, Mike wanted to get up there early, and we were making great time.
Yeah, the water down there, and then there's a little river bottom, creek bottom. Don't wrap around it. Get to the edge of this, come over the top, go down that side, go through the valley, and get up on the ridge.
Got up on the ridge line and were able to glass back over the fields, and we saw a couple of bulls right off the bat, and they were on a beeline straight for us. We watched them come across that field, we watched them clear the fence, and so we set up. Mike did a little bit of soft calling, but I don't know what happened. We never saw those bulls. They didn't come all the way to the top. They may have gone further to the south or something. But then we heard another group bugle a couple of times.
We could put eyes on them, and there was a giant herd, 70 to 100 head maybe, and 2 giant bulls for this particular area, and probably a dozen others just floating around the outside edge. They're pretty far away.
But once again, they didn't come our way, and so we kind of double timed it, reset up, and at that point we were pretty much in the middle of the vortex.
You know, sometimes you hear about the X. X marks the spot. We were dead square in the center of the X.
You kind of hope that you get yourself in the middle of a herd like that. Most of the time it doesn't work because there's so many eyeballs and so many things to go wrong. We just happen to have the elk gods looking favorably on us that day, and we ended up right smack in the middle of where they ended up bedding, and it was an absolute mayhem of a morning.
For maybe 3 solid hours, we had elk coming and going and circling around us and going in front of us and bugling and fighting and mating, and you know, we just couldn't move. We were just there, right in the middle of this huge herd of elk. Well, we'd probably been there, I think, maybe 30 or 40 minutes already, and we could see elk all the time, but they were 100, 110, 120 yards away from where we were sitting. Mike was calling, trying to get some elk to come back to us. I was excited, but first time I really got excited, I noticed a little spiked bull coming in to check out Mike's call, and he kind of circled around Mike, and he ended up maybe 10 steps from us. And I knew that there was nothing in the world better than a live decoy. And he just stood there and was looking around and looking around and looking around. I turned my head back, and 30 seconds later, here comes a bull. He decides he's going to follow the spike to see what was so interesting. And not a huge bull, but there was never a doubt in my mind I would shoot him if I got a chance. And I had to get drawn early because he was coming. I probably was drawn for, I don't know, felt like 2 or 3 minutes. And he just walked right up to us. He was probably 15, 18 yards away, just facing us the entire time. It felt good. I saw the lighted knock hit where I thought right where I aimed, but I could tell he ran away maybe 20 yards. I could tell that maybe I just slightly missed where I wanted to hit. But he was seriously hurt, and I knew he was hurt. I grabbed another arrow, went to shoot that, and unfortunately I hit a little tree branch and got a deflection, and I saw that arrow just kind of harmlessly go off into space. That spooked him. He runs off about another 30 or 40 yards and just stops. And you can tell he's really hurt, but he's not down. And all of a sudden I realized I've got a shooting lane again. I ranged him twice at 55 yards, and I squeezed it off. And I just remember hearing that solid sound of a hit. I didn't see exactly where I hit him. I didn't have a lighted knock on that arrow, but it sounded solid. He bucked pretty hard, threw his head around, and then took off trotting away.
Jeff hadn't tagged out yet, and we had elk all around us. So we hunkered down and kept calling, and a couple small bulls did come in.
I'm gonna try to call that bull over this way a little bit when he
really that bigger herd bull that he was massive, had really white-tipped antlers. He was raking a tree and bugling probably about 100, 120 yards away through some pretty thick stuff over there, but we could see him every now and then working back and forth. He finally came around and he got down below the hillside a little bit below us. I bet we were in the middle of elk for 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. It was a long time before they finally moved off. And, you know, we tried to make a couple of different moves. And finally at the end, we kind of tried to make a Hail Mary on that biggest bull and went around to the side, got right behind a tree and tried to make a run in as he was bugling to get a shot. And he had already started off, and then we kind of bumped him and they headed on off to the north. But what an incredible morning.
Okay. He's surrounded by cows. When he bugles, he picks his head up and he can't see. Okay. And you just got to time it right. We were so close. We were so close. I was watching them thrash that tree. Oh, he was on fire. He was so mad. He was on fire. After that, we ran back up to Steve and we started looking for blood, see what's happening, and he had some good blood, and we tracked it for a little while, and then all of a sudden, it just petered out.
There just wasn't anywhere near as much blood as there should have been. We searched and searched and searched and searched, and we could not find another speck of blood. We couldn't find a track. It's just a sick feeling. I think only a hunter knows how bad it feels when you wound something, it gets away. Bless your heart, I heard you say, I found some blood, and it was like, oh boy, we're back in the game again.
But as I was walking up, I noticed under this one evergreen tree that there was a brown spot. First I said, oh, that's got to be a log. That can't be his elk.
And I heard him yell, and I wasn't quite sure what he said, but I thought he said, I found your arrow. And he said something else, and I thought he said, it's in your elk.
Dude! Thank you so much. Congratulations. What was the second arrow? He's in it.
And I was exhilarated, but mostly I was like the most relieved I've been for a long time, because yeah, what had been just a glorious day had gone downhill, and now we're back on the top of the roller coaster again, and it was just so exhilarating. He was trying to be coy. I'm like, you found your arrow? I'm like, did you find the elk? Got your arrow.
Oh my gosh. And as I'm coming up with the truck, I see Jeff with his thumbs in the air going, we got him, we got him. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me. That bull was down and we ended on a really strong note.
I've had a great time hunting with Jeff and Mike this week, fabulous guys. But my takeaway so much was that I did shoot this elk, but Mike called this elk, you got us back on the blood trail, and Jeff found the elk. And it just felt like this fabulous team effort. I got to be the one that gets to take the meat and the antlers home, but there's no way that was gonna happen without the other three guys I was hunting with that day.
So now that we had an epic hunt, let's not forget that we still have a tag to fill. Jeff hasn't tagged out yet, so we have to make a decision. Do we want to go after that herd? Because there are a couple giants in there. But it's very difficult to get in on a situation like that 2 times in 1 week. Or do we go after kind of that solo bull that might be, you know, easier to call in and get a shooting opportunity?
After you see a bull like that, it's hard not to go back and try to at least get set up on him some way. So we came in from a different direction, parked way up top of this draw and worked our way down. We heard a couple of bugles early. Couldn't really tell what they were doing, so we got up and moved and worked our way down this draw to get down closer to the fields and the pond where maybe the herd had been. We saw one young bull fairly early cross an upper meadow, but he was not calling, not doing anything, so We didn't try to mess with him. We moved on down. About that time, we got set up and started glassing, and we could see the whole herd moving off to the east up a completely different hillside that we hadn't seen them go to before. But so we're kind of, glassing that and watching from this little knoll and can't decide what to do because the big picture's moving away from us. But as we're looking, one of the satellite bulls had peeled off and was actually coming right back towards us. So it was a mad scramble to stay low and crawl back behind the knoll we were on and get back into the timber line and get set up. The bull would look at us, but he would never bugle back. And finally, it took him a little while, but he worked into maybe 120 yards, something like that, certainly beyond bow range. And he was a fairly young bull, probably not a shooter. So then that evening, we were pretty sure where those elk were bedded, but if we all tried to go back in there, there's no way. We kind of pulled an audible and we went over to another area and climbed up high and another nice looking ridge top. We soft called with nothing, and we ended up moving around and working these ridge tops, and then we were watching back across to the other hillside where we had watched that herd go to bed that morning and saw them moving off yet again back down. And gluttons for punishment, I guess. We know where these elk are feeding all night. We know that they're going to water, and we know about where that's going to be. But from there, we have no idea which way they're going to go. There's a ridge in almost every direction of the compass. So yesterday, we went up a big ridge to the east, and so we went in really early this morning and got in and got set up in a perfect little pinch point, tight. It's a really great looking spot. And as the sun finally started coming up, we were glassing the ridge that they went up the previous morning, and here came three really pretty nice, not the herd bulls, but nice bulls. And we saw them on the line. And Mike said, okay, they're going to go right down this trail and right up this ridge over here. And we're out in this just wide open valley. There's nothing for cover. I thought, they could go a mile in either direction. How does he know they're going to come this way? But got my binos up and were able to glass them. And sure enough, they had jumped the fence. And, they hung up for a minute down behind a little hill. And I thought maybe they had moved off to the left and weren't coming. But finally, they came over. It was pretty clear they were going to come just as he said. Once again, grabbed my bow, ducked down. There's just hardly no cover at all. We get a couple 100 yards more. I find a little bit of a depression and look, and I think they probably winded us because the wind was dead wrong. It was blowing straight across our back and into their nose. So they just started running, and at that point, there's no way you're going to outrun an elk. Of course, part of hunting is the harvest, but it's not the only part. It's really, for me, it sounds kind of cliche-ish, but it really is about the experience. It's the camaraderie, it's the chance to get out, it's learning new things, learning new techniques, challenging yourself. For me, this hunt was really about a new experience.
Jeff, he likes to get after it. We got along famously well. I have a new friend. I think that the brand Badlands shines because of the authentic nature of the people behind the brand. They're not faking it. These guys really do live it. They really do love it. They really do get out there and get after it.
Been a really comfortable camp. Good guys in camp, great time here. All of that together for the week of the hunt, it's really been cool.